Hey everyone, it's Synth Designer back again with another video. Today I wanted to talk about chord voicing. Now chord voicing is usually not associated with sound design, but I wanted to show you it's actually really relevant to sound design, and I'll show you how in a minute. Before I get into the video, I just wanted to let you know about synthdesigner.com, my free website with presets, a blog, and even links to other content creators. Everything on the website is absolutely free, but donations are of course welcome. So chord voicing refers to how you arrange notes within a chord, basically. So a C major chord can look like this, but it could also look like this when you move the G note down here, right? So that's called an inversion. Now right now I have a really annoying kind of buzzy preset, it's just on a saw, but I want to show you kind of how the fundamental frequencies change when you change the notes in a given chord. So oftentimes people don't associate sound design with chord voicing, but it's actually a really important aspect of it, because if you change where your notes are placed within the piano, for example, then it's going to have a certain different sound, right? So if I play the C note over here, it sounds different than here. Now, one great free plugin that people may not know about is Span, and it's actually a spectrum analyzer. So what we can do with Span is open it up and see where the C notes fall on the spectrum. So here's one C, and here's another. As you notice, the fundamental frequency changes. So when you think about sound design is about creating different sounds and getting them to fall properly on the spectrum that you want it to. So if you have certain sounds that you want to be higher up in frequencies, then you're going to have to arrange certain notes for that to work. Now, of course, you could use low-pass filters or high-pass filters, whatever you need to get the right frequencies, but you may be cutting off your fundamental frequency and hurting the power of the sound. With that in mind, let's take a look at how we can arrange certain notes and make them sound more full, but also how it impacts it on the spectrum analyzer. So right now I have just a basic chord progression with 4 triads here. So this is technically in A minor, it might be in C major. I'm not going to get into the music theory here, but here's how it sounds. Right? Very basic. So why don't we head back over to Span and see how that lies on the spectrum analyzer. So if you notice, nothing falls below this line here, which is 100 hertz essentially. So that means nothing is getting into the sub-bass region, and it's only affecting a little bit of the bass region. Let's take a look at what happens when we add a few notes here. So I'm going to take the bottom notes of each chord and then double them. And here's how that sounds. So that makes it sound a little bit more full. It kind of gives a richness to it. But here's how it affects it on the frequency analyzer. Take a look at all this sub-bass frequency here. So you can definitely take that out with a low-pass filter, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're adding those sounds, right? Now, if you were to take out all that sub-bass frequency and make room for the actual sub-bass, that's great for mixing, but it is kind of changing and shaping the sound itself, right? It's shaping the chords and the actual synth that you created. So let's just take those back out, and now why don't we rearrange these chords a little bit differently? Maybe do some inversions here. just by dropping or augmenting some of these notes, you're going to see a pretty drastic change in how the chords sound. So we'll keep those last two as they are. Or maybe let's just drop this E as well. And now, why don't we shape the sound a little bit differently? Maybe add a few voices of unison, add a low pass filter, some drive. Now we have a more popular and standard sounding saw wave here, or sound. And so let's take a look at how that looks on the spectrum analyzer now too. So a lot of the highs have been cut out, but you see still no lows here. So we're saving all that low space here for the sub bass. Now let's just add those back and see how that sounds. We'll take the root notes again. So we added the root notes back here, another octave lower, and we can actually add a few more notes here in between just to fill out some of the space. So why don't we add maybe this E note here, these E notes here. Now we could really hear it becoming a lot fuller here. And then we can add these C notes again here too. Again, you can see all these sub-frequencies here again, and that's because we added those lower notes. So of course, since it's a synth and it's probably not going to be your sub bass, you don't want that interfering with it. So then you're going to have to make the choice where you cut some things or where you add some things. And that's kind of the idea behind chord voicing. It has an impact depending on where you put the notes, right? And so you're going to have to make those decisions in the mix process. So I hope that gives you a kind of a better understanding that where you put the notes actually does shape how the sound is projected, right? They're not arbitrary in the spectrum. I think that's something that we often forget, that when we're shaping sounds and using different chord voicings, we do affect how that sounds on a frequency spectrum, and it's going to impact what we cut and what we leave in, right? So I really hope you have a better understanding of chord voicing now and how it kind of affects your sound design, and you could keep that in mind anytime you create any sounds. Just keep a spectrum analyzer on, and then you can see where the notes that you're placing on your piano roll affect the frequency, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.